Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tara Campy. I'm with CalSTART, and we're excited to have you all on the line this morning. We've got a great, robust attendance list today for the Infrastructure Incentives webinar for medium and heavy-duty electric vehicles. Thank you again for taking the time to be on the call this morning. Quick overview. We're going to give you some team introductions on who is on the line from the HVIP team and from PG&E. We're really excited to bring you information from PG&E this morning about their great incentives. After the introductions, we'll dive into an overview of the HVIP incentives and infrastructure voucher enhancements, then a presentation from PG&E on their EV fleet program, services, and funding coordination. We'll then talk a little bit about partnership coordination for infrastructure incentives and the role that fleets and OEMs can play in the process. And then we'll move into a discussion regarding technical guidance for fleets on infrastructure planning and development elements. And we'll leave plenty of time for your questions and any feedback and conversation after that. So a quick introduction for who's on the line today. Again, my name is Tara Campy. I'm the HVIP program manager at CalSTART. We have Tom Brotherton, Director of Market Acceleration at CalSTART, Alicia Gildy, Director of Fuels and Infrastructure at CalSTART. At PG&E, we've got a great fleet team present here from Ann Camperson, Account Manager for PG&E, Kim Bowman, Business Analyst with PG&E, and then we have several other HVIP team members on the line today who you won't be hearing from directly, but are joining us and are integral parts of the team. Andy Swanton, Director of Trucks, Joey Volmer, Associate Project Manager, Casey Okazaki, Associate Project Manager, then Priscilla Berrigan, a staff engineer at Tetra Tech, who is our voucher process manager, and Eric Herrera, environmental scientist at Tetra Tech. So thank you all. And I will now hand it over to Tom for an introduction of HVIP.
Okay, thank you very much. What I will start with here is HVIP. HVIP is started 10 years ago as a hybrid voucher incentive project. It has since grown to multiple technology types, including electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, fuel cell, electric power takeoff, and low-NOx natural gas. But the key with HVIP is the V. The V is for voucher, and it's a streamlined first-come, first-serve incentive. It's not a proposal-based process. It's a very simple process that we use dealers. Those are the truck and bus manufacturers or dealers who sell trucks and buses on behalf of those manufacturers. And a purchaser would simply work with a registered HVIP dealer to secure an incentive, which is then set aside at the time of request. We've been running this, as I mentioned, almost 10 years. We're actually in year 9 right now. We've given out over 6,500 vouchers to 1,000 different fleets. Next slide, please. So why voucher incentives? If you think back, you're probably pretty familiar with things like rebates, tax credits. These are other ways of providing incentives to end customer. But the advantage of a voucher incentive is it's a point of purchase discount. At the moment you purchase the vehicle, you directly get a discount. So a fleet goes in, negotiates a deal for a new vehicle, and they simply directly pay that lower price. There's no waiting around for a rebate, no waiting around for a tax incentive that might come a year later. Our program relies on dealers to really run the program. This is a real advantage because there are fewer complications for fleets. Dealers learn the voucher system. They're processing these vouchers time after time. So after the first couple that they may be new with, they get to be experts at it. We don't rely on fleets having to learn an entirely new system just to purchase one truck or bus. The other key thing is that the funding is set aside at the time of each voucher request. There's not a matter of uncertainty that can come with rebate programs where you're waiting around until you can actually send in that rebate application hoping that there's still some funding left in the program. At the time that you request the voucher, which is even before you've purchased the vehicle, you will know that there's still money in the program, and that particular funding for your vehicle is set aside and held for you for that particular purchase. Next slide. So some sample voucher amounts, and these are just a couple of, we have about 10 different categories of eligible technologies. These are the two that are probably relevant to today's conversation, which is really focused on zero-emission battery electric trucks and buses. In that left column, you'll see for trucks, we range by GVWR. So at the lightest weights, which are really down there in Class 1 and Class 2, you'll see we start out at $20,000 going all the way up to $150,000 for a Class 8 truck, and then even up to $300,000 if it happens to be a fuel cell truck. Now, there is a second column you'll see for disadvantaged community. This refers to the California Air Resources Board definition of those parts of California which have the most severe environmental impact, mostly air quality, as well as socioeconomic characterization of census tracts. So it goes by census tracts. That's actually a geographic definition that's even a little bit smaller than a zip code. So if the location of where that truck will be domiciled or garaged is within a disadvantaged community, it gets a little more of an incentive than if it's not. Looking at that group of incentives to the right, these are for transit buses, and you can see that they kind of follow the same format as trucks, but buses tend to be purchased in length. So you'll see that we start with the shorter buses down in the 20 to 24 foot, go all the way up to the 40 foot. 40 foot is really the most standard size of a typical transit bus. That gets a $150,000 voucher. And then there's some even larger buses, double-decker buses, as well as the longer articulated buses that get more money. And finally, the hydrogen fuel cell electric buses, which once again get $300,000. Next slide, please. So this is just a graphic showing some of the examples of eligible zero-emission vehicles in HVIP, combination of buses and trucks, and ranging from, the smaller end, probably some Class 3 vans, all the way up to Class 8 trucks and full-size buses. Next slide, please. So infrastructure voucher enhancements. In addition to getting funding for the vehicle itself, for every zero-emission vehicle for which you request a voucher, you are also eligible to get a voucher enhancement that covers the price of the electric vehicle supply equipment, or EVSE, which might also be known as a charger. This is important, though. It does not cover the labor cost associated with installing that charger or any utility upgrade cost that might be required in order to provide power to that charger. It does and can include the cost for load management software, as well as energy storage. Next slide, please. So the process for submitting the voucher enhancement for the Infrastructure Plus Up is via email. You can send us an email. The customer or the dealer, and in many instances we've had the zero-emission vehicle dealers actually directly handle the installation of infrastructure on behalf of the customer. So either the customer or the vehicle dealer can request the enhancement for infrastructure, which is up to $30,000 per vehicle. Send us an email explaining what you want to do. We review it, maybe get back with some questions, and then approve it. Next slide, please. And finally, the process is when you request a voucher, you include a description of the job, cost breakdown of each component, which might be the charger. There might be a separate cost for any energy management software. Maybe if there's energy storage, that's a separate line item. That would get approved. And then later on, when the EVSE is actually installed, you have some final invoices and proof of payment, as well as maybe a photograph showing the installed charger or a copy of a work order from the company that installed it. We email that into us and you get paid right away. One of the key things in HVIP is we do pay within a week, which is very fast for an incentive project. So one thing to mention, this is all available in our California HVIP website, californiahvip.org. You can learn far more detail about the program, look at every single one of the eligible vehicles, and learn how the program works. So that's it for HVIP, and I'm now going to kick it over to Ann to talk about PG&E's project.
Thanks, Tara. Thanks, Tom. HVIP is certainly a great program. We at PG&E are also offering our EV fleet program due to launch next month, mid-February. I am the OEM partner channel lead here for the program and have worked with many of you on the phone, so some of you may be familiar already. If you could go to the next slide, please. PG&E EV fleet program overview. It is a 5-year program, and we've been funded with $236 million to cover the infrastructure cost for 700 sites, supporting 6,500 new EVs. That is our target. It's a high target, but we think we can reach that in the next 5 years. And it's to support the conversion of the commercial and public fleets to electric only. And it covers the delivery vehicles, school buses, transit buses, and many more. Next slide, please. The infrastructure is anywhere from the utility pole or the transformer all the way to the charger. So that is what's called the make ready. That's the cost that will be covered by PG&E. It's either no cost or low cost. It will be very site specific. But in addition to your HVIP voucher and incentives, PG&E will cover that cost. We also, the same as HVIP, offer additional funding for disadvantaged communities. We call them DACs. So for public transit, school buses, and DACs, they also will receive a 50% rebate per charger. Next slide, please. And the vehicles that are covered are right here. It's medium, heavy duty, and even off-road. So medium duty delivery, heavy duty transit and school buses, and even off-road transport, port cargo, airport ground, even forklifts. So we cover the range of just about any electric vehicle that you could possibly want for your fleet. And if we have one more slide, I'm going to hand this over to Kim, who will, I'll say the requirements. The last but not least are the program requirements. You must be a PG&E electric customer. We are from mid-California all the way up to the Oregon border. There's some very few little pockets that are not PG&E, but for the most part, if you have a PG&E electric bill, you are qualified for the program. We also would like to, we're mandated per the program regulatory, is to have usage. We need the data from your charger for the first 5 years. Also, a 2 vehicle minimum. So as soon as you get your HVIP, along with HVIP, once you show them that you do have electric buses or vehicles under contract or a PO or RFP, then let us know and we'll work with you on your site. And finally, the program must be maintained for a 10-year minimum. And that is it for me. And the next slide, Kim will take over on how to get started.
Great, thanks, Ann. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about what PG&E specifically is offering through this program. So we are in the process of standing up a team that will be dedicated to the EV fleet program. So that means that we are providing dedicated design, engineering, and construction services to customers and participants, which means that we'll be able to work very closely with each applicant every step of the way to design a site that best suits their charging needs to the best of our ability. And also, as Ann mentioned before, we are offering significant cost offsets for the electrical make-ready infrastructure work up to 100% of the costs covered by PG&E. Again, site-specific on what qualifies. And we have additional charging station rebates for those eligible sectors that were mentioned. And we are also encouraging coordination among all decision makers and relevant stakeholders. We want anyone who is involved in the EV fleet program process to be involved early and often. So we want to encourage and facilitate that dialogue as an ongoing conversation across all parties that are involved to facilitate the decision-making process. So this may include fleet operators, company management, vehicle dealers, yourselves, charging station vendors, and any contractors as needed. And we're also developing a number of tools to help customers facilitate that decision-making process and support conversations around budget and cost savings. These include a rebate calculator and a rate calculator. Next slide, please. So this is a high-level overview of what our process will look like, including a little detail on how the rebate and funding coordination process will work out. So once we receive an application from our website, pge.com/evfleet, the application will enter our eligibility assessment phase, in which a PG&E representative will reach out to the applicant for an introduction call. And on that call, that's when our conversation starts, and any relevant stakeholders can be a part of that. And then our design team will start to dive into the technical details and do a desktop review, oftentimes do an initial site walk to create a preliminary design for the customer to review and for discussion. And then at the end of this stage is when a contract will be signed, formally accepting the project into the program. And then they would enter the design and construction phase, during which a project manager would be assigned to the project to work through detailed design and moving into construction. So construction occurs, and then PG&E will organize an inspection of the site and the charging stations before they're activated. But once the inspection is completed and passed, that's when PG&E issues any applicable rebates and incentives to the customer. And then after PG&E pays that out, the HVIP enhancement voucher can be paid to cover remaining eligible infrastructure costs beyond what PG&E covers. Next slide, please. And then I wanted to highlight some of the key benefits of this collaboration, specifically that we're helping you guys, vehicle dealers, sell vehicles and promote infrastructure savings for customers, which is a huge expense in vehicle and fleet electrification, while also increasing customer confidence in their buying decision and their decision to go electric. So we believe that presenting these two funding options together will lead to increased sales as the numbers of the projects become more digestible to customers and the business case becomes more clear. And the open communication and coordination between both programs will link customers with the resources they need to shift to fleet electrification, and includes, linking vehicle dealers and utility assistance as needed. Also, this collaboration stretches available funding for transportation electrification programs further by allowing customers to stack the funding sources to cover more of their expenses while allowing us to stretch our dollars further. So what we are asking from HVIP dealers is, number one, to educate your customers on PG&E's EV fleet program and the available infrastructure cost savings. So you're welcome to share the handout materials in this webinar with your customers for reference and any details on the programs and how they work together. And then Number two, once you have a customer commit to wanting to purchase or having purchased at least 2 vehicles, you can work with them or have them submit an application for the EV Fleet program at our website, pge.com/evfleet. And the application will be available in mid-February. All right, that's it from me.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly. This is Alicia Gildy with CalStart. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Anne and Kimberly, for your great presentation and presenting the very impressive and exciting opportunity to provide infrastructure incentives to fleets that are participating in our HVIP program. Just real quickly, folks, what I wanted to do really in my purpose for today's call is really to link the partnership and really discuss the roles that each of us play in supporting our fleet customers with their infrastructure planning, and then looking at the 2 incentive programs, whether HVIP and the PG&E Fleet program, really how can we better synchronize and work together to make sure that those programs are successful. And as our fleet customers are putting in their orders for electric vehicles, at the same time, they're starting that infrastructure planning. So real quickly, this slide, what I wanted to show here is all of the eligible counties in the PG&E service territory. And so this just gives you a really good overview and sense of all those eligible counties. So PG&E they're responsible for a big territory. Very much thanks to all your good work there. But this is really exciting. So if you have customers that you're working with in any of these counties, of course, they would be eligible to participate in the EV Fleet program. All right, so what I wanted to do here was really kind of walk you through the steps on, as it relates to HVIP, and as you are working with your fleet customer and they're eligible to participate in PG&E's program, really what we're going to need from you. We're going to need your assistance and your leadership to make sure that, one, our team's learning about the eligibility, but that you're also having the tools necessary and the information necessary to educate your fleet customer about the great benefits of not only our HVIP infrastructure plus-up incentives, but also PG&E's EV Fleet program. So the first step here is what we want to do is make sure that our dealers and OEM partners, that they're determining whether or not their fleet customer is eligible to participate in the program. And again, as long as they're operating in the service territory and they meet the requirements of the PG&E EV Fleet program, they would be eligible to participate and take advantage of those incentives. And what we would want you to do is then, of course, inform your customer, and hopefully that would be an added bonus, as you're meeting with customers to say, gosh, not only do we have these great vehicle incentives available through HVIP, and we also have plus-up incentives for infrastructure, but there's this other really great program, and this can really help you successfully deploy your electric fleet. All right, step 2. Once you've communicated fleet eligibility to the HVIP Voucher Processing Center Administrator, and everybody knows Priscilla Berrigan, she's on our phone. As soon as you communicate and submit your voucher request for that vehicle, do inform us right away that you're working with a fleet that's eligible for this program. And also, if you know that your fleet customer has plans of expanding and growing their electric vehicle fleet, having that information ahead of time is going to be very helpful to PG&E as they think about how they're going to support that fleet customer in building out infrastructure to help enable a successful EV fleet deployment. All right, step 3. Now we're seeing the different colors here. Step 1, step 2, those are really what we're going to count on you and your support for. Step 3 and 4, that's up to us. So once we've approved that vehicle voucher, Priscilla and our team, we're going to communicate the eligibility of that fleet to PG&E, just so they have a heads up. Look, we have a number of, X number of EV vehicles submitted for our program. We want to give you a heads up that you can probably count on them submitting an application to take advantage of the great incentives that are offered by the PG EV Fleet program. All right. Step 4, what we're going to do is now what we want to do is connect everyone. We want to make sure that you are working closely with your fleet customer and PG&E to begin that infrastructure planning process. So once we've already approved the voucher, you've submitted your draft purchase order, and we know that that commitment for those vehicles are there, you would then be eligible to move forward with your fleet customer to submit the PG&E EV Fleet program application, and that's step 5. So step 4, our team will make sure that everyone's connected and working together and starting that infrastructure planning process. And then step 5, you will then work with your fleet customer to submit a PG&E EV fleet program application. Again, that can be either the OEM dealer that's supporting their fleet customer with that application, or the fleet can submit that directly themselves. All right, so, thinking about the importance of infrastructure planning, and, certainly our HVIP team, we've been hearing more and more as we're, successfully seeing a number of vouchers come in for electric vehicles, the critical need to support our fleet partners in adequate planning for infrastructure development. And really, that once you're starting to think about procuring electric vehicles, that you already need to start thinking about infrastructure planning and being prepared for the amount of time that it's going to take in order to put that infrastructure in place. And what we're trying to do, and really the purpose of this webinar, is not only to introduce you to this wonderful PG&E EV fleet program, but also just to realize that the timeline that we're working with here, if we can start getting infrastructure planned and ready and starting the development process so that by the time the vehicles are delivered and the vouchers are redeemed, they're going to have access and be able to start benefiting from that infrastructure. But we all know that it takes time. And so to the best that we can communicate and work with each other from the very beginning to start that infrastructure planning process immediately, the better for everyone, and most importantly, it's better for our fleet partners. So what we wanted to do today was, in addition to reviewing the 2 great incentive programs that are offered for infrastructure, we wanted to kind of pick your brains and figure out how can we be better partners to our fleet customers on giving them technical guidance and some important consideration to support their infrastructure planning process. We all know that this is completely new to them. They've been potentially working with conventional vehicles and very familiar with that business and very comfortable with that business. But when you're going toward electric, that's a new ballgame. And we know that there's a big learning curve, and it can be quite intimidating for our fleet customers. So we need to, hold their hand through the process and give them some encouragement and let them know that they have partners there that are going to support them. So our team came up with some suggestions, and what we want to do is, once we get into the discussion period of our call today, and after we've answered any questions you might have on the 2 incentive programs, we do want to further pick your brains on how can we be better partners in providing technical guidance to our fleet customers. And that's everyone that's on the call today. How can we be better partners to help our fleet customers? So the 5 tips that we've come up with, and I want to give big thanks to the team and Andy Swanton, who's on the phone with us today, who's leading our truck initiative, to really come up with some 5 tips. And of course, there's a number of other steps that are involved here, but if we can give a nice snapshot, when you're talking to a fleet customer, hey, here's what you need to be thinking about as you're planning on growing or building out an electric vehicle fleet. Here are the top 5 tips for infrastructure readiness. So number 1, you want to contact your utility as soon as possible, right? And this is the whole partnership and the purpose of today's call. So working with PG&E, if they're in the PG&E territory, immediately. And as we've discussed our process here, hopefully we've created a structure here that makes that automatic and seamless, since you have the partnership here ready to support you. Let me just move this guy real quick. Sorry. All right. So next, what you want to do is you want to optimize your upfront cost ratio of electricity used and power. Sorry, I have a silly toolbar that I can't seem to hide here. I can't read my own slides. All right, optimize your upfront cost, and that means the ratio of electricity used and power brought to the charger. Number 3, optimize your dollar per kilowatt hour rate, and that's based on load profile and demand charge. Number 4, you want to confirm any permitting that may be required. A contractor can also give advice here. And then number 5, you want to plan for expansion of an EV fleet. And we discussed that as soon as you can tell the PG&E and HVIP team that this fleet customer you're working with has those expansion plans, better that we know that ahead of time. So number 5, plan for expansion of EV fleet, not just for the required capacity. Think about long-term. If you're going from 20 to 50, let's make sure that we're setting up that infrastructure to meet that power capacity that's going to be needed in order to successfully power all of those vehicles that you see down the road. So these are 5 tips that we presented as a team today. Once we get into the discussion portion of today's call, I definitely want to hear from all of you. Have we captured it? What else do we need to be doing in making sure that we're giving the best advice to our fleets on preparing them for infrastructure planning? All right, so what I'm going to do now, and maybe Tara, if I can hand it over to you, let's go ahead and open up the call for questions to make sure that if any folks have any questions related to our presentations today on the HVIP Infrastructure Enhancement Plus Ups, as well as the PG&E EV Fleet Program, let's make sure we get those questions answered, and then we would love to engage with everyone on a discussion. We have a couple of questions here that we would love to hear from you on. So Tara, if you want to take over, my dear, let's take some questions that folks might have on the PG&E EV Fleet Program and, of course, HVIP Plus Up program for infrastructure incentives.
Thank you, Alicia. We don't have any questions in the queue right now, but everyone, please feel free to enter your questions in the website, in the webinar functionality as we continue talking here. You can continue to submit questions in the question box. But for the purposes of kicking off our discussion, we wanted to hear from you about your experience regarding the best way to start infrastructure planning conversations with a fleet. So any experiences that you have that you would be willing to share with the group, best practices and tips, we'd love to hear from you.
And I do see that Mark Baer, hi Mark, I'm so glad that you're on. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you want to ask a question here. I see your hand raised. Mark, I've unmuted you. Do you have a question for us or maybe some feedback?
Yes, question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
There's information that in the past, when using funding like this, that the plug-in locations need to have public access. Is that still a requirement?
No, I can take that one for infrastructure. For infrastructure and PG&E, no, they do not have to have public access for the fleet program.
To dig in just a little further, our manufacturing facility employs about 220 associates, and we're adding plug-in infrastructure for employees, but what we're also doing is recognizing that our customers are moving towards electrification, and so we'll be planning for charging locations behind the fence. And the HVIP voucher is for our customers. Is there an opportunity for us to enjoy funding for our manufacturing facilities infrastructure, even though the voucher is tied to the customer, if that's a clear enough question?
Mark, that is completely clear, and I love that you asked that. This is Ann with PG&E. Are you located, is your facility in the PG&E territory?
Yes, Dixon, California. That's correct. We're a customer.
Well, then I would love for you to call me right away because we have another program that we could offer you that will be very lucrative and beneficial for your employees, and your customers alike. More than happy to talk about that in detail.
Thank you.
Thank you. That he's Mark. The program I'm offering Mark is our other level 2 charger program for light duty. It's called Electric Vehicle Charge Network, and we do have that available for public, private, workplace employees, tenants, and customers as well. So that's another program we offer. If you're interested, we also have a website, EV Charge, pge.com/. But Mark, I want you to call me directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you both. We do have a question in queue from David Rand. This question is for
Ann and Kim at PG&E, and he asked, do we understand correctly that the only way to use the PG&E rebate is to use the HVIP voucher in conjunction with the program?
Thank you, David, for asking that question. Yes, this is Ann. No, absolutely not. We are trying to, we would love to combine the funding sources just to offer more advantage to the customer, but no, you don't have to have the HVIP at all. As long as you're a PG&E customer, we can serve you with this program.
Great. Thank you so much, Ann. And I think there's a question coming in here regarding, just real quickly, just to remind everyone, you should be able to download the handouts. One, we have a nice one-pager that presents both incentive programs for HVIP and PG&E EV Fleet program that you should be able to download the PDF. All these are PDF attachments, and we also have a copy of today's presentation. So if you wanted to take some time in reviewing the presentation later, that's available for you to download, as well as our EV Fleet fact sheet from PG&E. Just to let everybody know, we're also recording today's webinar, and we'll be making that available for folks. So in case you might have any peers or colleagues that missed today's webinar, we're going to have this available online as well. So that will be a nice attribute for anyone who's looking to learn about the program.
And Tara, did you include email information on these on the presentations? Oh, there we are. Oh yes, and phone number. Excellent.
Yes, at the end we've got some contacts for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Tara, do we have any other questions from folks on the call today?
We do not have anyone in the queue. Thank you.
Right. Our panel team, our presenters, did you guys have any thoughts on some of the good discussion questions we had earlier here in terms of how we can best provide support to our fleet partners? And again, you know, definitely will be, if we don't cover and work with you today online on these questions, you can imagine that we will be reaching out to you eventually as we're working on a number of different projects at CalSTART. And of course on HVIP, we are looking at how we can best develop tools to support, planning tools to help support our fleet customers on infrastructure planning. So we really want to rely on your expertise, because we know that all of you are, you know, involved and engaged in important infrastructure projects, and I'm sure there's a lesson or two that you're learning that we can all benefit from. And of course, we just want to be as knowledgeable and resourceful to our partners as possible. And so we're really excited about this partnership with PG&E, and as SCE and PG&E also, or PG&E also launched their programs, our team is going to be working with them as well as to look at how HVIP can collaborate and support the overall infrastructure planning for fleets throughout the state of California. So we're really excited about the opportunity to leverage our partners and seeing how we can make their program successful, as well as how we can make sure that we're helping our fleet customers. So any thoughts or final thoughts from our panel team today? And of course, I want to invite any of our other HVIP partners that are on the call today if you have any final thoughts or points to add.
No, just excited to be working with the team. Those of you I haven't worked with yet, please get in touch with me, and we can talk about 2019, 2020, all your exciting activity around fleet. So thank you. Thank you, Tara and Alicia.
Thank you.
Yeah, nothing else from me. Just please reach out to myself, Kim, or Ann if you have any more specific questions about our program. Again, it launches mid-February, so be on the lookout for that at our website, pge.com/evfleet, for more information to come. Thanks.
Sorry, just as a reminder, there are handouts for you to go ahead and access to refer to. We've got the copy of the PowerPoint in the handout section of the webinar, as well as a couple of one-pagers with more information. And then here on this final slide, we've got PG&E and HVIP contacts for you. So again, we thank you all for taking the time to join us this morning, and look forward to continued conversations. Also, the webinar will be recorded and available on the HVIP website. So if there's not any other comments, we will sign off at this time. And again, thank you for your participation, and have a wonderful day.